Before you can use your cutting machine with Sure Cuts a Lot, we need to make sure that the driver is installed. To do that, we first need to launch Sure Cuts a Lot. You want to make sure that your cutting machine is turned off or unplugged from your computer. Click on the Help option in the main toolbar and select Install USB Driver. Doing so brings up the Install USB Driver box, which states you can choose to install or uninstall the USB driver for your Cricut machine below. Make sure that Install USB Driver is selected and click OK. The message simply states that we're about to install the USB driver and that the Cricut machine should not be connected before we start doing this. So we're going to click OK. And the device driver installation window appears. We want to click Next. And it's copying the files right now. Once complete, it'll tell us that the drivers were successfully installed and that we can connect the device to the computer. So we can click Finish. Go ahead and plug your cutting machine into an available USB port on your computer. It's important that you plug it into an actual USB port that is located on the computer. If you're using an external hub, make sure that that hub has its own power supply. External USB hubs that rely on the computer as a source of power sometimes will give you inconsistent results with your cutting. So we want to make sure that if you are using an external hub, that it has its own power supply, or just connect your cutting machine directly to the computer. The shorter the USB cable, the better. Go ahead and plug the cutter into the computer and turn on the power. As you turn on and plug in your cutting machine, the computer should make a sound letting you know that it's found new hardware. As you can see, the computer's telling me that it found new hardware and that the new hardware is installed and ready to use. So now that the cutting machine's installed, let's get it ready for its first cut. Go ahead and place some paper on your mat and load the paper into your machine. In Sure Cuts a Lot, you'll want to select the mat size that corresponds to your actual mat size in the real world. You can do so by selecting the selection tool here, and then clicking on the corresponding mat size under the Properties panel. In this case, I'm going to select 12 by 12. Okay, so now that we have the correct mat size selected, I'm going to place a shape on my mat. In this case, it's going to be a heart. I'm going to place it over here and make it about this big. And I'm going to click on this Cut with Cricut button. Doing so will bring up the Cricut firmware window. In this window, it's important that we select the correct model and the correct firmware of our Cricut cutting machine. We'll click OK, and the Cricut should begin cutting. Once it's complete, you can click OK. If you've successfully cut, you can now unload your paper. Now you'll notice that the next time you click on this Cut with Cricut button, the same screen will come up. In order to prevent that, we can go in and tell Sure Cuts a Lot to remember which cutting machine we're using. To do that, you can click on Edit and go to Preferences, and then click on the Cutter tab. Next, click on the Remember Cricut Model and Firmware option. Now while we're in here, you'll also want to adjust your cut speed. I recommend setting your cut speed to medium or low for the highest quality cuts, and then click OK. If for any reason, primarily for troubleshooting, you're asked to uninstall or reinstall the USB driver, you can do so by going under Help and clicking Install USB Driver. From the drop-down, you can click Install USB Driver Force, and this will basically reinstall the driver and will overwrite the current drivers that are already on the system. Also, if you're asked to uninstall the USB driver, you can do so here. Simply select one of the two tasks and click OK and follow the on-screen instructions.